reaching out to Muslims is, it's a great place to be. I didn't even intend to focus on witnessing the Muslims. I didn't plan that. Some people, have some kind of calling. I just became interested in Islam because my best friend in college was a Muslim.
Right.
And so, if my best friend in college had been, a Buddhist, maybe I'd be doing Buddhism right now. But my best friend was a Muslim. And so, those of you who have friends out there of different backgrounds, that's a good reason, if you love your friend, to get interested in what they believe, so you can have discussions with them. And so it was just interesting because Nabeel, my friend, he ultimately became a Christian years later. And so I thought, hey, I can get back to atheism, which is what I'm more interested in dealing with, the atheistic objections. But then I watched, his family go after him, not physically,
right.
with arguments, trying to convert him back to Islam. His community, his dad was having him go to various scholars around the world to teach him that Islam is true. And people started challenging him to debate, come out and defend why you converted. And so never actually managed to get back to what I was interested in, but along the way realized that it's a good place to be. When you see a Muslim convert to Christianity, he's been told all his life that confessing Jesus Christ as Lord is the worst possible sin. That's shirk. And not only that, he's been told, you could be killed. You could be, according to Islam, you're supposed to kill people who leave Islam. So when a Muslim gives his life to Jesus Christ, he's got to be willing to give up his family. He's got to be willing to give up his community. He's got to be willing to risk committing the ultimate sin, and he's got to be ready to lay down his life. But when someone's willing to go through all that, to be with Jesus, that's someone who will lay his life down for Jesus. And so these are great people to witness to.
Yeah, I heard you say that ex-Muslims make really cool Christians.
Yeah,
I think
they do.
because of that, because of the radical call, the discipleship that they have to embrace.
Yeah,
which is an awesome thing.
Yeah, and I mean, because lots of times, especially here in the West, we're preaching the gospel. We lots of Christians tend to think, all the non-Christians out there, they're like prostitutes and drug dealers, and they convert, and their lives are going to get much better. Their lives are just going to get better in every way. And when you're preaching to a Muslim, and I had to think about this when I was a Christian. I'm talking to this guy's my best friend. I care about him, and I had to think, wait a minute, what if he does convert? I just messed up my best friend's life. I mean, his life is going to get really, really rough. Hey, he'll know Jesus, but as far as earthly things, he's going to lose. And part of the reason that's cool is because that's more like it was in the first century.
Right.
You know that in the early Christianity, when the apostles initially went out, you converted to Christianity, you had to pay a price.
And that's really more how like what it is in the rest of the world, really.
Well, when you say deny yourself, take up your cross and follow Jesus, Jesus calls us to do. And I think that's certainly pictured when we think of the kind of conversion you guys are talking about.
So before we move on to sort of a crazy up and down tale, just so everyone catches that, David is saying that there was a best friend he had in college, and he was a Muslim. And as he began speaking to him, he became more and more interested in learning about Islam. This person came to faith. Nabeel Qureshi is now an apologist. In fact, I just saw an interview recently he did on Apologetics 315 Blogspot with Brian Otten out there in Ireland. Props to Brian. He's really from Michigan, but I'd rather say Ireland because Ireland is a much better place to be than from Michigan. And so props to him. But I say that not because of the story we're about to tell, because I'm from Ohio. And if you're from Columbus, Ohio, you cannot like the state north of you. You see what I'm saying? That's why, because of the Buckeye thing and the Wolverine thing. Okay, not because of the story about to tell. However, the story we are about to hear does involve Michigan. In fact, Dearborn, Michigan. David Wood, tell us a little bit about Dearborn, Michigan.
Well, Dearborn, Michigan has the highest Arab population anywhere outside the Middle East in the world.
You know any numbers?
That roughly a third of the city is Muslim.
Well.
And that's a third of the city overall. The city's kind of divided up. If you go to East and South Dearborn, almost everyone you see is a Muslim, and you have women. Most of the women there are wearing hijabs, but you also have full burqas. That's the full, the full, just seeing the eyes, or not even the eyes sometimes. So yeah, you go there, and all the signs are in Arabic, all the business signs are in Arabic, and if you woke up in, say, East or South Dearborn, didn't know where you were, you might think you'd think you're in the Middle East, because you'd look around, you'd see nothing but Muslims, and you'd see all the signs in Arabic. And but Dearborn every year has an Arab festival where a couple 100,000 Muslims come from. They come from across the country, and some from outside of the country, to go to this festival. And it's not a religious festival. It's not a Muslim festival. Right. It's an Arab festival. So, people are, listening to Arab music, eating falafel and kebabs, and people get together.
At the Arab American Festival in Phoenix, there was like a 20-minute set by some rappers. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Anyways, but moving on. So more about Dearborn and more about the festival. Or is there anything else to say?
Oh, well, as far as the Dearborn Arab Festival goes, lots of us think that that's a great opportunity to reach out to Muslims, just because the communities can be so segregated. If you're in East Dearborn or South Dearborn, your family's Muslim, all your neighbors are Muslim, most of your school is Muslim, and you might never even have a New Testament. You have no clue what Christians believe. And, some don't want to know what Christians believe. Yeah. But if you go out there, you'll have some young Muslims asking you some good questions, because they don't know. They don't even know what Christians believe.
Right.
And so they don't even know the gospel. If you've never heard the gospel, you're going to have a, hard time thinking about it. So we go out there, and usually, if you're standing there and people know you're Christian, you're handing out copies of the New Testament, you're handing out tracts or something like that. Those who are interested and actually want to have a conversation, they'll start it.
So how many years have you been going out there?
I started going in 2008.
What kind of, and who's sort of going with you?
I started going because of Pastor George Saeg's ministry.
Okay.
George is from Sudan, where he doesn't have the freedom to preach the gospel. He comes here, got very excited that he can actually walk up to Muslims here and not risk his life by preaching to them.
Well, when we come back on the other side of the break here on Backpack Radio with David Wood, let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
You went out and some craziness went down. I mean, you're there. I don't know how long you were there when this happened, but it's all on video, so everyone can watch what you're about to tell us. But what are you about to tell us? What happened?
Well, it's actually things that unfolded.
When did this happen, actually?
Things unfolded over a couple of years. Okay. So 2008, I went to the Dearborn Arab Festival, passed out tracts, DVDs, got in some discussions with Muslims who had questions, ranging from why are you here, why are you bothering people when we're trying to have a festival, to straightforward questions about what Christians believe and so on. So that was 2008. And what we do when we go to the festival, we don't go into the actual festival. We stand on the public, the public sidewalks alongside the festival and try to catch people as they're leaving, something like that. And, get them a copy of the New Testament or something like that. In 2009, the Dearborn Police Department announced we would no longer be allowed to distribute anything on the public sidewalks. So you're not talking about in the festival. We never disputed, hey, we won't pass things out inside the festival. They said, we're going to arrest you if you hand something out on the public sidewalks. And that's scary. This is supposed to be the United States of America.
Yeah.
And they're telling us that here in the United States of America, you can't stand on a public sidewalk and hand someone something. Now, this is totally weird to me. I mean, I walk down the street. I live in New York. I walk down the street in Manhattan. I've got Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientologists, atheists. You're walking down the street. People are handing you stuff left and right. So to tell me, I can't hand something out is very strange. So that was 2009, and we didn't hand anything out. We weren't allowed. But Nabeel wanted to ask a question at a Muslim booth. They had a big sign up that said, if you got questions, we've got answers.
Right.
So Nabeel, who's a Christian now, he wanted to ask them a question.
This is all your fault, by the way, just so you know. You got some Nabeel's going in there. You send him there. God used you to make him a Christian. So I just hope you accept full responsibility for this story.
Yeah, troublemaker.
So Nabeel goes into the question answer booth. He has a video camera. What goes down?
Well, Nabeel wants to ask a question about Surah 9:29 of the Quran, which is an important verse if you'd like to know about what Islam teaches about unbelievers. Surah 9:29 of the Quran commands Muslims to fight and subjugate non-Muslims. It says, fight those who do not believe in Allah. And it specifically refers to people of the book. That's Jews and Christians. And Muslims are commanded to fight us until we are subjugated second-class citizens. And so based on what was going on there at the Arab festival, namely stopping Christians from having the right to preach the gospel, that's Sharia law. You can't preach the gospel to Muslims.
Stop real quick. I'm going to quickly define Sharia law. If I don't define it properly, help us out. Sharia law is the application of Quranic and Hadith principles to legal codes.
Yeah, so Muhammad laid down rules on all kinds of things.
Right.
So here's the penalty for adultery. Here's the penalty for fornication. Here's how Christians and Jews are to act when Muslims are in control. And Sharia is just putting all that together in one big ball and saying these are the rules instituted by Muhammad. And one of the, under Sharia law, Muslims cannot convert. It's a death penalty. And under Sharia, if you're a Christian, you can't preach the gospel. You're not allowed. So here we are in Dearborn, Michigan. In a festival with a lot of Muslims there, and police are telling us we can't preach. I mean,
you can't pass out tracts in a public place.
And so, we're looking at that saying, wow, this is kind of like we're now becoming second-class citizens because, Muslims are walking around handing stuff out left and right. And so, Nabeel wants to ask at this booth about this, second-class citizen status laid down in the Quran. And the Muslims at the booth, they were fine. They were willing to have the discussion, but the Muslim security guards started slapping us around.
What do you mean by slapping us around?
They were kicking Nabeel in his legs. They were slapping our cameras. They were trying to. I had a camera in my hand. They were slapping it,
and so they just walk up to you and start.
Yeah, they surrounded us, and at first, I have a camera. I wasn't. We weren't trying to, record anything important, but, when they surrounded us, then I was holding the camera up and it was like, this is the only thing I got protecting me right now. Cause
it shows what's happening.
Yeah. If suppose they beat us down, take our cameras and they say, hey, these guys came over here and started swinging at us. And that's why we had to stomp them into the ground. Yeah. And so it was like, we got and Nabeel and we actually had, 2 cameras with us at the time. And we ended up in kind of a crossfire where I had my camera pointing at him and he had his pointing at me, so that if anything happened, then we have it. And security's
this is crazy. This whole story is just already. I mean, do you hear this? It's just. So then what?
So this is a public sidewalk in the United States of America, and I said this. I said,
this
hey,
happened right outside of the festival.
Yeah, and I said, this is the United States of America, and Muslims were actually yelling back, no way. And one Muslim, I didn't actually catch this on camera because the guy pushed my camera aside and he got right in my face and he said, do you really think you're in the United States? So this is Michigan. This is Michigan. I got a guy telling me I'm no longer in the United States. So anyway, that happened in 2009. We caught it on camera trying to record a conversation at a booth that invited us to ask questions and gave us permission to record the conversation.
Now, the stuff you're talking about, where can someone see that? I know there's a Dearborn tag on your blog, but some of the specific stuff you're saying that you do have on camera, what are some of the titles of the videos or some of this that you just talked about in 2009? Where can we see some of those?
YouTube actually took that video down for no reason. But,
I noticed that. I tried to go there recently, so it's gone.
Yeah, but there are mirror versions of it even on YouTube, so it's still on YouTube. They just took it down.
They took down yours.
Yeah, they took it down.
You don't know why?
No. I asked them. They said that, well, at the end of the day, they can take down whatever they want. So, I will.
Free internet.
I just don't.
I think I know why. It was right after that Anders Breivik nut shot a bunch of people in Norway, and so in my video is called Sharia in the U.S. or something like that. And so I think people complained and said, "Hey, this guy's shooting people, and we're scared for our lives because they're criticizing Sharia. So in order to protect Muslims, you have to take down that video."
Also, you would sort of be akin to the Anders guy, then, is what they're saying.
Yeah, well, I think
you're Anders in embryonic form.
Yeah, I think what they're saying is, hey, other guys like Anders Breivik might get upset. Right. That there's, people are slapping around Christians.
Oh, and then they would.
Take it to extremes.
So you'd be an Anders inspired.
Yeah, so we have to stop this.
That's the rationale.
Yeah,
okay.
Got to take that stuff down.
Well, Pastor Rome, can you add some commentary to this? Because what on the next part, we're going to get in 2010, right?
Yeah.
So let's save that for the next side.
It's interesting. We're in a culture now, and I think in Christian world where the idea of talking to people who come by you with the gospel is almost considered, well, you should know them better, form relationships with them, all those kind of things. I mean, I wonder if you've encountered some of that, people who've said, well, you kind of brought that on yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree that the best approach, if you have the opportunity to really witness to Muslim, because they have so many ideas that are ingrained into their mind that are contrary to the gospel, that it can take a long time for them to wrestle through those. And so the best way to reach a Muslim would be, to have a Muslim friend that you can talk to over a long period of time,
like you and Nabeel.
Yeah. And because there's so many issues to deal with, and this is important to understand how Islam is different from everyone else. I mean, I grew up as an atheist, and I didn't believe in God, but I didn't have any particular problem with, if God existed, he could die for my sins, or if God existed, he could be a Trinity, or if God existed, he could do these things. So once I believed in God and I, believed that Jesus rose from the dead, everything else fell into place. Okay, I'll submit to this guy. I'll submit to him. If he's the one who rose from the dead, if I'm going to listen to anyone tell me about God, I'm going to listen to him.
Yeah.
With Islam, it's not just that they lack certain beliefs. They're actually taught the opposite. God can't die for your sins. God can't enter into creation. God can't be a Trinity. And so they're taught literally from the time they're born. The mother will whisper into the child's ear, there is no God but Allah, Muhammad is his prophet. And so they're actively taught all their lives.
Gaga goo goo.
Yeah. They're actively taught all their lives to believe in the opposite of what's in the gospel in many cases. And so, you do need kind of a relationship, especially if you're going to be criticizing Muhammad or the Quran. When Nabeel and I are friends, it certainly helped when I'm criticizing Islam that he knows he's my friend, and I'm not saying this just to be a jerk, and not saying this just to upset him, and vice versa. When he's telling me that the gospel's been corrupted or something like that, I understand he's not trying. He's not out to just be mean, but at the same time, you don't always have that opportunity, and so if you've got tens of thousands of Muslims gathered together
who may not have any Christian friends. That's important. So this may be their only contact. Yeah. People are sort of assuming, so then, everyone can have this Christian friend. And so what about these places in Dearborn, for example?
It's maybe all Muslims, right?
Yeah, maybe it's sort of a naive view, but you're saying, but if you can't, then.
Yeah. And, you certainly want to try and get some materials into their hands. Some of them are going to throw it right in the garbage, but some of them are going to take it home and maybe look at it later. But also, the people who are interested in having a conversation, if you've got 10,000 people there, suppose
someone's going to be.
Suppose 1% are interested in having a conversation. Well, you're there. And now they've had a question they've been wanting to ask a Christian for a long time.
Yeah.
Now they have the opportunity. And so those are the ones who will come up to you and ask you the question. And so, but what you have in the Muslim world is, if you're talking to a Muslim who's 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, I've never been in a conversation with a 15, 16, 17-year-old Muslim where there were older Muslims around, where those older Muslims did not come over and shut that conversation down.
Right.
And it's really, you could tell they're literally terrified of you sharing the gospel with some of the younger Muslims.
Yeah.
And so, on the one hand, you kind of understand that if you go into a situation where you're going to be preaching the gospel to younger Muslims, some of the older Muslims are going to get upset and they're going to try and shut you down. And, and if they're on security or something like that, they might start slapping you around.
Yeah.
But if you look historically, that's exactly how Jesus did it. That's exactly how the apostles did it. They would go out to the big festivals, the Passover feast. They would go out where people were gathered around. And lots of times you see people flipping out over this stuff. You see people flipping out over Paul preaching the gospel. But that's what we're commanded to do.
Jesus stands on a table and says, "I am the light of the world," type thing. When we come back, this is our last segment coming back on Backpack Radio with David Wood. We're going to find out the most recent thing in 2010, where it really gets juicy. Backpack Radio. See you guys in a second. And tonight in the studio, we've got Professor David Wood. He's from New York currently and has been doing a lot of really apologetics to Muslims. Some other things right now. I guess he's working on a doctoral dissertation on the problem of evil. He's got that all figured out. When it comes out, there will be no more problem of evil. He didn't say that. I'm just messing around. But seriously, a dynamic guy. We're glad to have him in town. He was here recently out at the Arab American Festival witnessing, as well as some other things here in town. And we've been telling a story about you and some folks heading out to Dearborn, Michigan, and at the Arab American Festival there, doing some witnessing. That rhymed. You notice that?
Yep.
2008, 2009. And now we're going to tell the 2010 tell. What happened, my friend?
Well, after we were physically attacked in 2009, we talked to the Dearborn Police Department about it. They asked, do we want to press charges? Do we want to take these guys, do we want to see them prosecuted for crimes? And our position was, no, we don't. We just want to make sure that they understand they can't do that they can't slap us around for, constitutionally protected activities here in America. So the police said they were going to do that. So, and they said they were going to make sure that the people there understood, that, they can't do that sort of thing. So we go back in 2010 and, we walk around the festival for a while, and security's actually stopping people from having a conversation. If we start getting in a conversation with some Muslim, security comes over and tells the people to leave, tells the people to walk away, don't talk to us. So this was, getting, it was pretty annoying. And, we eventually decide we're going to leave. We're going to walk out of the festival. And Nabeel grabs some falafel. We're actually walking outside. We're leaving the festival. And a group of young Muslim guys comes up to us and starts asking us some questions. They're asking good questions. They're asking, how can you believe God died? How can you believe God came out of a woman? How can you believe in the New Testament when it was put together hundreds of years later? They're asking the good questions, which are the kind of questions that we want to answer. And Nabeel is standing there calmly answering the questions of these young Muslims.
So I've seen this video. That's where one of the parts of the video picks up, right? There's like a group of guys around him, and he's answering. He's doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's answering. And James White watched the video, and he said, I would answer those questions in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So Nabeel's sitting here calmly answering the questions of 16-year-old Muslim group, and police come along and grab us all, put us all in handcuffs, throw us all in jail.
And it's like instantaneous.
Wow.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're there, and you can see most of this on video.
Huh.
Yeah.
Really? So it's just like showed up and put you in handcuffs, literally handcuffs.
Yeah, and throw us in
for having a conversation.
Yeah, jail cells, fingerprinting, mug shots.
That is a trip.
Hey, do you have your mug shot?
Yeah, I was.
Can you put that on your blog?
Some Muslims have posted it.
Oh, that is. I want to see that. Does Nabeel? Who else has one? Can we say?
Yeah.
I want to see all your guys' mugshots. That should be your ministry, like, promo photos right there. But no, so you're in jail in Dearborn.
Yeah. So, and actually, it's kind of on a different note, but we're back there. We're in jail, and they actually have us down the hall from each other. So we're talking to each other, kind of have to yell down the hall to talk to each other. And, I'm yelling, feed me or free me and stuff like that. So we're being goofballs, and, I could hear people in the other cells. It's like 3 a.m. and stuff. And finally, Nabeel had no clue that there were other people back there. And so he says, Hey, Wood, are there other people back here? And I said, yeah, and you're probably keeping them up. And he goes, maybe we should preach the gospel to them. And I said, the gospel? What's that, Nabeel? And so Nabeel lays down the entire gospel.
That is great.
Nabeel lays down the entire gospel. And then I said, well, Nabeel, many other people preach their religions. How do I know that this gospel of yours is the true one? and so he gives
forget singing hymns. Forget Paul and Silas. Yeah. We got a different style.
We sang some hymns too when we were back there. But,
that is great.
So then Nabeel gave a little apologetics presentation. What's cool is a couple days later, someone.
I was in the joint with you.
That's what they did. Someone emailed us and said, hey, I was in a cell. He said my son got beat up by a bunch of Muslim kids, and I went over to their house and kicked their door in, and I came back there, and he said I went in, they put me in that jail cell, and I was hating Muslims, I was hating Arabs, and he told Nabeel, he said here, your name's Nabeel, and you're back there preaching the gospel. He said you really calmed me down about
that is not the right approach, by the way, people.
That's not what we want people to take from this whole story.
Yeah. And so then what's the sort of aftermath?
Well, it was actually, I mean, horrifying. I thought, hey, once people realize what happened here, the police are going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. They took they took my video camera, so I couldn't even prove what happened. They kept it for almost a month, while the mayor and everyone else made up this total nonsense.
Yeah, the mayor wrote a letter.
Yeah, he said we were going there. We were screaming at people. We were ordered to leave. We refused to go. We were inciting a riot. Police had to come in there and break things up because we were about to start this mob riot. It was total nonsense, but they had all the evidence in their hands. They
blame it on the falafel.
Yeah. Eventually, the court ordered the police to give us our cameras back. At which point we could post it and say, no, actually, Nabeel's just answering questions, and police threw us in jail. But by that time, the people in general were actually convinced that we were running around screaming at people.
Right.
And to this day, Christians walk up to me, hey, you guys have the wrong approach. You shouldn't go around yelling at Muslims. And I say, well, I've never yelled at a Muslim in my life, so I have no clue what you're talking about here.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what happened. And even after all that, they still took us to court. We were found not guilty. But they still took us to court for supposedly disturbing the peace. I mean, if you think about that, I mean, what if they had succeeded? What if we had been found guilty of disturbing the peace for answering the questions of a Muslim on a public street? That would be some interesting case law there.
And so, I mean, what's the current day sort of status of this? I mean, if you guys went back, what are the future plans? What is the interaction? What's the response? I mean, what are people saying? I mean, where are we at now?
Well, I'll tell you, because it's kind of sad that Dearborn seems to be caught in kind of a spiral, because after people saw police throwing Christians in jail for calmly answering questions, a lot of the people who go there now are people who are yelling at Muslims because they got angry, angry that they're. And so we saw at this past year, the 2011 festival, people showing up with signs saying Muhammad's a pedophile, and and they're yelling, "You Muslims are going to burn in hell" and stuff. And they didn't come in years past. In years past, it's people handing out tracts, people who really love Muslims, and would do anything to talk to them. And the city, because of what it did, is now attracting the people who do want to yell at Muslims.
Right.
And that. You can't. It's hard. It's almost impossible to even have a conversation while someone's sitting there yelling, Muhammad's a pedophile. He's burning in hell and stuff like that. And so I wish, I hope Dearborn does something to kind of get away from this, because suppose Muslims start attacking those people who are yelling about Muhammad. Well, that's going to draw even more people who just want to yell at Muslims, and it could be this big spiral situation. So I just hope that it doesn't turn out that way, and Christians who want to discuss the gospel can keep having conversations with Muslims who want to hear it.
And I'm assuming that's really the main takeaway here, is that to encourage people to have those kind of conversations with Muslims. And sometimes it's obviously ideally when you have a relationship with someone over a long period of time, but sometimes it might be just someone you meet briefly, and for that person, in many respects, they've only known Muslims their whole life. And those are unique opportunities, and we shouldn't be afraid to do so, even with some of the things that we're facing.
Yeah, and I'll just add very quick, if a Muslim, because, and this is important to understand, more and more in our culture, it's, hey, you don't discuss these issues. It's offensive to discuss these issues. Lots of Muslims don't grow up with that mindset.
They don't. They like to talk about religion,
especially Muslims who have immigrated here from the Muslim world. They have no concept of not
because they don't have the separation, the radical separation that sometimes in the West we think of.
Yeah, and lots of Muslims would love to discuss these things with you, and they come over here and and people don't want to discuss it because they think they're being offensive. But if anyone ever asks you, why are you doing this? Why are you preaching the gospel? It's very easy to point out to say to a Muslim, hey, your Quran commands you in Surah 16, verse 125, to invite me to Islam. It says,
is that called dawah?
Yeah.
What's that called?
Yeah.
Surah 16, 125?
Yeah, Surah 16, verse 125 commands Muslims to invite you to Islam. And so you can say, look, my Bible commands me to preach the gospel to you. Your Quran commands you to invite me to Islam. Here I am. Invite me to Islam as your book commands. I'll preach the gospel.
Be obedient.
I'll preach the gospel to you. Or we could both disobey our scriptures and walk by each other and talk about something else. But do you want to do that? Do you want to disobey?
That is great. That's a great one to know. Surah 16:125.
All right, hey, put that in your pocket.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's good. So the takeaway is we don't do a show to make people scared. We don't do shows to make people angry or upset. We do want people to be aware. And you can't be ignorant or naive about this. This is a reality. People in other countries may hear the show and say, this is the most boring show ever. Because to them, they have a lot worse to contend with. And they're like, so what? That's another day in the life. But at the same time, I know the people in other countries that would hear this would say, yeah, and just wait till you see the full bloom of what Sharia law is. And we do need to be aware of that and understand there are radical differences between the implications of Christianity and a people and Islam and a people. And this is something that we need to take into account. But either way, we are commanded to preach the gospel. And if we love folks, we will. Is that a sort of good synopsis? Guys?
Absolutely. And if you ask any of the Christians, Pastor George, he comes from Sudan, where a couple million Christians have been killed in the past few decades. Pastor Daniel Scott, who was, charged with blasphemy in Pakistan just for criticizing Islam when he was, asked what he thinks about Islam. You ask any of these people from Muslim countries, they'll tell you, man, you take advantage of the freedom you have here to preach the gospel, because you can't do that.
Well, let's transition here. David is from New York, so he might have some kind of background in hip hop. When I first emailed you, I mean, you're in the Bronx. That's the birthplace. When I first emailed you, you said, yeah, I'm the king of beatboxing.
Yeah, well,
there is none higher. Sucker beatboxers, they call you sire.
Yeah, my quest to become the ultimate human beatboxing machine began when I was just a boy.
All right.
We came from a family that couldn't afford to send me to beatboxing school, so I had to learn on the streets.
Well, hey, I understand that. Just check out Dougie Fresh, the master. Look, I understand that, and we want to give you a chance to fulfill your very dreams, David Wood.
This would be a step up.
Yeah, so you could record.
Further down the path.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can start out with some beatboxing, maybe if you got some tricks or something. And then here's what I'm going to do. I have written a rap. From your perspective, I'm going to rap the rap, but they need to think of it like it's coming out of you, even though you'll be beatboxing. This is your mind that I'm rapping forth, and you'll be the beatboxer. So I wish we had this on video, but everybody, right now, history is taking place. David Wood, break us off something proper, son.
All right, here we go. Try to keep up.
Yeah, all right. Backpack Radio, David Wood, Pastor Ramon, in the house. Here we go. 1, 2, yo. I'm David Wood, man, I'm brave in the hood. Make my day, call me Dave Eastwood. Rolling through the Bronx like it's all good. 17 acts, spitting heavenly facts. Man the bill, like chilling in the back on the microphone with Qureshi raps and Sam Shamoon. The man's a buffoon. Tools 2 project coming out real soon. I love dialogue, check out my blog. Shining light on the Quranic fog. Missing verses, people getting flogged. That's the truth to the youth we speak. Quoting Muhammad Al-Bukhari Hadith. I speak to a Sikh, a Sheikh, or a Mufti. They can see the true God of beauty through the gospel, even when it hurts. Yes, I commit the sin of shirk. Word!
What?
You never have another radio interview like this, David.
Never. It's impossible.
Any final words as we close out the special edition of Backpack Radio?
Just everyone, make sure you can defend the gospel as we're commanded to do in 1 Peter 3:15. And Muslims, 1.5 billion of them around the world, so you want to know how to share the gospel with them.
No doubt. Next week.